want to ask you if you ever ask yourself, why do we dream? Well, actually, I think that everyone has always been fascinated by the nature, mysterious nature, and by the power of dreams. And I presume that every one of you also know a lot of things about them, because we grow up thinking and listening to a lot of anecdotes about them, maybe even daily. One of them can be, for example, that dreams can predict the future, or that dreams are a spectrum of our mind and personality, or also that dreams and reality itself can actually be the same thing, or can collide, or that sometimes they just get mixed up. And I want to confess to you that I'm actually one of those people that live in this, that believe that our dreams, not our goals, but our dreams actually can manifest into our reality in many sort of ways. And that we also are what we dream. But why might this happen? And especially, where are the proofs? Well, actually, all the answers are all around us, in ourselves, and in all the scientific research that have been spent and is being spent to better understand this topic. Well, for start, the first civilization that have started to try to answer all the questions that we have about them was the ancient Egyptian civilization. They, in fact, were very serious about the dream culture. And it is also true that the only and the ancient, most ancient dream book that we know that is in existence is called the Sisti Beti Papyrus. And it is, in fact, an ancient Egyptian script. What those people believe was that dreams were made of symbols, and that those symbols were able to tell us our future or an important fact about ourselves or our lives. So what they were trying to do was actually interpret those dreams. And the people that were in charge of doing that were temple priests, that at that time were people that were really high in their hierarchy. But actually, most of the questions that have made us understand better this topic were given us just recently. It was 1953 when Eugene Aseriski and Nathaniel Claytman have discovered what we now call the REM phase. REM is an acronym for Rapid Eye Movement, and it describes actually the movement of our eyes while we are dreaming during the night. And the REM phase, it is in fact the phase of the night in which we are dreaming. And it is also true that it is the phase of the night in which our brain is most active. But continuously using our brain and continuously being active takes a lot of energy. Sometimes even more energy than when we are awake, because an interesting fact is that when we are dreaming, sometimes our brain is even more active than when we are awake. So all this energy wasn't something that in ancient times we could afford. But there is this theory that Matthew Marcel have wrote in his article that talks about that dreams could be actually an evolutionary product. Let me explain. Basically, what he believed is that we have developed to dream in time to survive. But if dreaming requires that much energy, and we know that energy was a fundamental thing for the survival of us in prehistoric times, why we have developed to do that? What is the function of actually dreaming? Well, it was discovered that dreams actually can help us memorize things, can help us to train our mind to real life situations, can help us in trauma processing. And also, while doing that, they constantly send signals to our brain. So basically, people have started to dream to train their mind. And we can say that the actual product of dreams in our lives are, for example, our behaviors and our skills, and even how our mind is formed, in part at least. But dreams aren't just problem solving. In fact, dreams can inspire us in any sort of ways. And I would love to talk about how dreams have inspired the Aboriginal Australian people to create and base their culture on their own dreams. Basically, what Australian Aboriginal people believed was in what we call the dream time, that we can define as the oral collection of all the myths, spiritual beliefs, and art that these people have created based on their own dreams. What they did was taking images of wisdom while they celebrated their ceremonies in a state that they called of dreaming, or in a state that we can define between the sleeping and the waking. But these stories doesn't just teach some kind of story, but they actually taught them values that they have applied in their own lives, values that have created a deep connection between them and their environment. And that was a product of the dream in their life. But they weren't limited to that. They've also created any sort of art that represented this beautiful story of them. But what I would like also to do is contrast this representation of the dream with this representation of the nightmare of Zdzisław Beksinski. Zdzisław Beksinski is a master of the nightmare. With just the use of oil painting, he was able to represent and bring his mind into the actual canvas, but in a totally different way of how Aboriginal people did. We can say that Beksinski was a tormented artist. With the death of his wife and the suicide of his son, we can say that Beksinski was the happiest man alive. Not to mention that at the age of 75 years old, Beksinski was found stabbed to death in his apartment. But what I'm trying to say with this is that we can see a change in what they represented through their paintings. We can see that the environment in which we live in influences our own reality. So if Aboriginal people dreamt about beautiful and amazing places, they have lived in beautiful and amazing places, and we can see those beautiful and amazing places with beautiful and amazing creatures in their paintings. At the same time, Władysław Bekiński was dreaming nightmares. These nightmares have manifested in his life, so he created his own nightmares. But dreams are also, they have also developed and helped to characterize a lot of personality in the history of paintings. And we can find great examples in the surrealistic era. What surrealistic painters tried to do was actually take a real subject or an object in their paintings in a position, form, or place in which they didn't belong to, getting inspired by the world of dreams. But why they did this? They did this to actually change their reality. They wanted a change in their reality. So for doing that, they have actually brought images of wisdom, just as the Australian Aboriginal people did, into their paintings, creating a surrealism. And we can find great examples in the paintings of Salvador Dalí, which was a painter that have actually said that the most of his famous paintings that he did were created in a period that he defined as paranoid critical. In this period, he was inspired by his subconscious mind and have transformed all the images in paintings, just as Aboriginal people did. And can't we define this as just another form of dreaming? But Salvador Dalí wasn't just inspired by his inner self. It is in fact true that he was inspired by any sort of artist and authors, some of whom are Sigmund Freud and the famous painter of the Renaissance, Raphael. So here we are, the Renaissance, 1400 AD. The Renaissance was a great period of paintings, which paintings actually played a role, an important role, in the society, because they have provided actual free knowledge for everyone that wasn't able to read. Even though this wasn't actually a great period for artists, because the philosophy of Plato, an ancient Greek philosopher, have completely changed their mind and their behaviors. What Plato believed was in another word, a word that he called hyperuranian, a word that was above us. These words were made of all the perfect ideas of everything that exists in the earth today and at that time. So basically, everything that existed on earth was imperfect. And artists weren't just painting an imperfect subject, but their labor was the most imperfect thing in life because it was the copy of the imperfection. But what Raphael did, and he didn't stop, was painting a fresco that represents a man that have bring the perfect on earth with just the help of a dream. I'm talking about Jacob's dreams at Bethel. And the story goes like this. Jacob had to go from one city to another. And in the middle of the journey, he was tired, so he decided to take a rock, put it on the ground, and laying on the rock. So he fell asleep. And after some time, he started to dream. He dreamt about this stairway coming down from the sky. So he started to climb it. He climbed, he climbed, and at the end of it, he found the gates of heaven. So the next morning, he woke up. He took the rock. He placed oil on it. He placed again the rock on the ground and named that place as Bethel, that translated is the house of God. So this is just one great example to many of the others that I presented to you of how one person can just bring the good that he has found on the dream into reality. And by doing that, by bringing that good into reality, that person becomes the good himself. So this is what dreams are. This is what dreams can do. But how we choose to control our life is just something that us can decide. But we also know that life is uncontrollable sometimes and unpredictable, just as dreams. So can't we say that we are just living in a dream?